So hi everyone, I'm Jeremy from Fluid Topics, and I will introduce you the page designer today. So I will talk about the basics, how to use it, and then we'll go deeper. And I will introduce you some custom components and shared components. So first, what is the page designer? So it's a powerful tool that allows you to build what you want. You know that before maybe you couldn't achieve what you want for different pages on Fluid Topics. So now you can start from scratch and build what you want, or maybe use a predefined template that we will provide you and then modify it. So the main principles to build with the page designer is basically just positioning Lego bricks together. If you are familiar with some builders on WordPress, like Visual Composer, for instance, it's basically the same principles. It's drag and drop components and then modify them, modify the settings and the look and feel. So as I told you, there's only 3 steps. It's easy to use. The first step is to drag and drop components. So you can choose from a wide range of components, from the simple rich text to the powerful search bar, obviously. The second step is to customize them by adding some styles. So it will look the way you want to fit your branding. And the last step is not mandatory, but keep in mind that you can reorder them as you want because elements are not fixed. And if you want to improve the user experience, then you can. So here is the page designer. It's mainly 2 areas. So the first area is on the right side. It's the contextual sidebar, and it lists available components. So you can add components from this sidebar and then modify the behavior and the appearance. And the second area is the preview, which allows you to select the components and reorder them. So it's really what you see is what you get. So before going deeper, I want to show you this little toolbar on the bottom left corner. Some of these features are quite easy to understand, but it's really important that you know them. So the first feature is the expanded reduced view. So this one is really simple. If you work on small screens, keep in mind that clicking on this icon will reduce the left sidebar, so you will be able to have more space to work. So quite simple, but still can be really useful. The second tool is really important, obviously, the responsive tool. So this will allow you to select the device you want to work with. So it will switch resolutions when you click on them, and you will be able to add some rules for these resolutions and the next ones. And one important thing is that in Fluid Topics, we work desktop first, not mobile first. So my advice is always to begin with the desktop and then modify your design for the next dimensions. So here, again, if you switch resolutions, you have desktop, landscape tablet, portrait tablet, landscape mobile, and then portrait mobile. We will see after how we can modify the CSS for every resolutions. Next tool is the grid displayed hidden. So it's quite easy. It's just a little helper to see, to see where your components are nested. So if you enable it or disable it, you will have these little guides. So it's a dotted border. So it can be really useful, especially if you have a lot of nested components. Next tool is the conditional visibility highlight. This one is a little bit tricky, but not that much. it will highlight your components that are governed by a conditional visibility rule. So what is a conditional visibility rule? It can be, for instance, a component which is only visible to authenticated users. So this way, in the designer, you will know with this border, this yellow border, that this area of your page is governed by a visibility rule. We don't know which rule yet, but still you know that it will not be visible for every users. Obviously, it will not be visible for the front-end users. And then, of course, the undo redo button. I will not play the video. I mean, it's quite easy. Keep in mind that the Command Z and Command Shift Z also work if you want to use your keyboard shortcut. Last tool, but not least, the breadcrumb. I mean, it can be silly, but it's really, really helpful, especially if you have a lot of nested components to achieve the place you want to go to modify the correct components. Keep in mind that this breadcrumb can be lifesaver. So if we are here, our breadcrumb is like this, for instance, section. If I click on this area, I will have obviously the section content and the rich text. So I know it's nested this way. And if I go back, it's a section again. And you can direct click on one of these items to reach the correct component. Okay, so that's all for the toolbar. Now that you are aware of it, let's cover the right sidebar. So we will see all of these tabs with some examples. And the first tab is obviously the component tab. So it's the place you will find all the components available for the type of page you are working on, and you can drag and drop them to your page. So these components are divided. There are some categories. The first one is the layout category. So it's the place to build the structure of the page. You can drag and drop simple block, columns, section, and so on. The second area is the basic components. So it's mainly to add simple, raw, static content. I mean, some video, link, icon, image, rich text. The only exception is the localized label, which allows you to translate some elements of your page depending on another dictionary you can upload in Fluid Topics. And the last part is the contextual component. So it's more advanced components which rely on the type of page you are working on. As Fabrice told you before, there's the page designer for the homepage and landing page, but also the reader page and the search page. We'll not cover it today, but these contextual components will be different for these pages. Also, these contextual components expect input parameters to work because they are connected to the knowledge hub. So obviously, if you want to show a topic content, you will need to get the ID of the topic you want to fetch. The second tab is the settings or parameters tab. So this is a tab in which you can modify the behavior of the component, its possible labels and icons. Of course, the content of this tab will vary greatly from one component to another. For the simplest component, you will only have the ID and title fields. But for instance, for this component, which is the search result component, I guess, you have a bunch of parameters like the query to fetch the correct content and the local, the max results. I just want 2 results here and so on. Here is an example for the search bar for the parameters. So I will show you here how to add new filters to your search bar. So if you click on the search bar, then we have our filters here, the drone type and audience. But if we want to add more filters, you can go to the settings tab here And in the displayed filters, you can add your metadata. So the region hierarchy, for instance, and document type cleaned. And then it's here. Another example for the parameters for the search bar is the dense option. So it's more about the layout here. Our selected filters currently are below the search bar. So here is the French language and the audience is displayed here. But if we go dense, it will be within the search bar. So it's just two examples for the search bar. Next tab is the Styles tab. So obviously, this is the tab where you can change the appearance of the component. The editable properties are self-explanatory. I mean, position, display, spacing, all of this are quite simple to understand. But for more advanced use, you will need to opt out for the CSS properties tab and or the CSS rules. For simple things like the background, you just have the color picker, for instance, here to select a beautiful red as usual. But for the others, it will be as simple as this one. So I will show you an example of the Styles tab and the responsive. So you will understand how we can switch and adapt our design. So here is my footer. I got 4 equal columns right now. I'm obviously on desktop. And as you can see here in the display section of my styles tab, I got a display grid, and the grid templates columns are 1 frame, 1 frame, 1 frame, and 1 frame. So 4 equal frames. That's why I got 4 columns. But I want my last columns to be wider, so I will put 2 frames. And as you can see, it changes. So now that I'm happy for this one, I will go to another resolution. Landscape tablet is okay for me, but for the portrait tablet, it begins to be a bit shrinky. So again, in my Styles tab in the display area, I don't want the 4 frames. I just want 2 frames, 1 frame and 1 frame, so 2 columns. And it's far better now. And then the landscape mobile, let's say it's okay. And for the last one, I just want 1 frame, so 1 column. And it's as easy as it. So we have a good footer right now. So each time you modify a property in this Styles tab, for instance, the background, its corresponding CSS rule is added or modified in the CSS properties text area. So keep in mind that if you are a more advanced user of CSS, you can put your own custom CSS rules here. So if you know a bit about this language, you can directly put your CSS here and not even go through all of these panels. Okay, now it's an example a bit tricky, but you will need it if you want to make a best customization for components like the search bar. So for advanced components. So here is my search bar. For me, it's too wide. I just want it to be like 700 pixel wide and center it. So my guess is that I will go to the Styles tab again. And in the CSS properties, I know what I'm doing. So I will go down and put max width 725 pixels. And it doesn't work. And that's normal because some components, like the search bar, for instance, are more complex. I mean, there's a bunch of nested components in it. You cannot see them, but I mean, the filters are a nested component. The search icon is a nested component too, and the selected filters too. So you will need to select these children components to act on them. So to do so, you will need to go to the CSS rules panel, not the CSS properties, because the CSS properties are only applied on the main component itself, the parent component. But now I will need to focus on a special part of this component, which is, sorry, I will display it again so it works, the container part. And I put my max width 725 pixels and the margin 0 auto, which allows to center the element. And now the question is, of course, how do you know about this container part? How can we find it? And the only way currently is to, oh, sorry. I'm sorry, I will go back soon. Okay. So I told you the way to find the search, the container part of the search bar is to inspect your code. So if you know what you are doing, it's for, I repeat, advanced usage of the designer. You will need to find the parts you want to work with, and you will see that, maybe I will zoom. For this element, the div parts equal container is here, and our CSS is applied here, the double point part container. This is the syntax you will need to use, is max width 700 and margin 0 auto. And if we inspect more deeper, you will see that there are a lot of other parts like the search bar, and we got, I don't know, part filters opener and so on. So keep in mind for advanced usage that you will need to find the parts you want to work with. I repeat, it's for advanced usage. Most of the time, the tabs here will be enough. Next tab is the DOM tree. So this one is simple. This is the tab in which you can change the order of components by simply dragging and dropping them. It's also a good alternative to the breadcrumb we saw before to find the correct components you want to work with. So here is an example. In this page, if I scroll down, I really like this section, the behind drone lift section, but I wanna put it on the top of my page under the search bar. So if I click on it, it will be highlighted here. And then on the right side, I will be able to drag and drop it. And then it will be in the right place. Really simple. And the last tab is the preview configuration. So this tab allows you to preview your page as if you were an unauthenticated user or an authenticated user, or depending on the role of the user. So it will be really useful if you need your page to be different depending on the users. So you will be able here directly in the designer to preview it. An example again. So here I got this area, the must-read topics and the latest publications. Right now, my conditional visibility component, the little eye icon, is not visible. So I will enable it. And as you can see, this area is highlighted. So it means that there's a rule behind it, a conditional visibility rule. We don't know yet which rule. So we will click on it. And then if you go to the breadcrumb, you can see that our section is nested in a conditional visibility content, which is nested in a conditional visibility component. So if you click on the conditional visibility component, you will see on the settings tab that it's visible only if the user is authenticated. So now that we know it, If we go on the preview configuration, if we play with this option, the authentication, we can preview our page as if we were an unauthenticated user. And as you can see, it's not displayed. But if we are authenticated, it's displayed. So don't hesitate to play with this one, especially if you are dealing with pages that aren't the same for every users. So I think we covered more or less the basics of the page designer. And if out of box you cannot find the correct component, the right component for what you want to achieve, you can always create a custom component. So it will allow you to develop your own components with the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript you can put in it. So it can be useful. I will show you an example live. So let's say, I will just refresh in case. Okay. So let's say you want to add your own custom components. If we go in the component tab here, so not in the layout, not in the basic components, but in the contextual component, you got the custom component. So let's try it. If we put it here, it invites you to double click on it. So if you double click, you will get this panel with an HTML panel, CSS panel, and JavaScript panel. So you can put your own code here and then run a preview. So now that you know it, I will show you an example here with this one. So it's a slider, a simple slider with 3 tabs, the food shipper, light shipper, and heavy shipper. As you can see, if I click, it will change the slide. And so on the top left corner, we can see that it's a custom component. If I double click on it, or you can go here and open the editor, it's the same. We can see our code. So for the HTML, we have 2 style sheets from an external library, Flickity, which allows me to do a little slider. And then, so you can obviously grab some code from other library and put it here. Then we have our 3 tabs, the food shipper, light shipper, and heavy shipper, and then 3 slides, the slide 1, slide 2, and slide 3, with every time a text and an image. And it works. And for the CSS, I will not cover the CSS, but let's say you want the title to be smaller. Currently it's 4 rem for the size, so I will put 2 rem. And if you run the preview, you can see that the title is smaller. So it's really quick to design here. And then the JavaScript, it's basically just adding my external library and then initialize the slider. So here is an example, really simple example for a slider, but you can do more or different things. But yeah, if you need a slider or a pop-up, this is the place you can put it. Next is the shared component. So it's different from the custom component. This one is really useful if you created your perfect area. You're on a page and you design it the way you want. The project manager is really happy with it, but you want to reuse it in another page. So you don't want to create it again. What you will do is transform it as a shared component. So first is there are 3 steps. The first one is to create your component, then to transform it as a shared component, and then to reuse it. We will see a live example. So here is my search bar. I mean, the whole area in dark blue background. I got my text and my search bar, the border radius, everything is perfect. I like it, but I want to reuse it in another page. So what I will do now is to transform it as a shared component, as I told you, and then to reuse it. To do so, you will need to click on this icon, the little floppy disk icon here. If you do so, it invites you to save it as a shared component. So you can name it, let's say my search, and then you can save it. As you can see, now the border around the component is not blue anymore, it's orange. So it means that we have a custom component here. It's our color code to know it. And if you go back to your components tab, we can see it directly here in the shared component section. I will hide the other one. So shared components will list all the available components, all the shared components you created. So if you drag and drop my search, let's say here, it will work directly. But in the same page, it's not that useful because you can just duplicate. I didn't show you, but you have the duplicate icon here and it will work, obviously. But our purpose here is to reuse it in another page. So let's do it. I will save this one like this. I will go back here and create a new homepage. Doesn't really make sense, but why not? My other home in, let's say, French language. Okay. So in my other home, if obviously it's blank right now, if I drag and drop my shared components, it will work. I will save it. But now, if you wanna redesign it, your project manager is not happy with it anymore and he wants a red background because why not? So if you wanna modify it, we'll go to the shared components section here to find our shared component. And it will list all the available shared components. So I can find my search, go here, and it's the exact same interface. So you can modify the background here. So we said a really nice and red background. Perfect. Okay, I see the face of my colleague. He's not happy with it. I will put it black. So now that I'm happy with the background, I will go back to my home page. And as you can see, it's the right color now. And same for my other homepage because they are related now. It's just two instances of the same shared component. So the last problem maybe is that the text is the same for all of these pages. So let's say you want the same section in your pages with the same look and feel, but not the same text. Maybe we want another text here. To do so, you can unlink the components with this little icon. So it means that it will not be related to the search, to the shared component anymore. The problem is that if you modify the shared component, the changes will not be reflected. So if you modify the background as we did before, you will have to do it manually again. So that's not the best solution. The correct solution to do so is to go back to our shared component, to my search, and we will not put the text directly in this shared component. We will delete it. Maybe I can just copy it. And we will put something we didn't see so far, a slot. So it will be an empty space where you can put in a different text in every instance of your shared component. So I will put it, maybe not here. Let's say here with a little spacing. Sorry. 40. And then if I save, sorry, I didn't name it. So you can name your slots. Let's say my baseline. Okay, so it's the slot my baseline. I save it. And then if we go back to our different pages, so the first one, we have a little dotted border here. And in this area, you can drag and drop what you want from the components. So now our rich text, we will put it here. I will put back my text, save it. And then in my other home, I will put another text. I said another text. Okay. So let's save it. And now, as you can see, in this one, we have this text, and in the other one, we have another text. But it's still the same components. So if we modify the background again, it will be reflected for every shared component. So that's the perfect way to have dynamic content, different content from one page to another, but still the same look and feel you want to have. Okay, that was for the shared components. And now to finish, I will show you some customer examples of the page designer. So here is one from Teradata. And for instance, here we have some nice vector illustrations and then some tiles with topic content or more topic titles. And then we have Cortex from Palo Alto. And there are 4 main categories to reach the correct documentation. For instance, another one more, I will say, like desktop iPhone, you know, the icons for Darwin box. So you can directly reach the correct place in the website, and it's very icon based. And another one for AMD. So this one is more complex with more information and some collapsibles here.